Hey guys, Joshua Snow here again, and today I want to finish the second part of the two-part focus stacking article slash tutorial. This shot was taken this summer in Glacier, some really great haze, a little stream, and lots of flowers. So this is a really cool scene, and I pretty much took this just to be able to show how focus stacking is done. It was completely windless, everything was very still. Later on in this shot, I have another frame that has the polarizer deactivated or rotated in a way where it's not having an effect on this water in the stream. Even though there's not much there, I have another frame with a little bit of glare that's just going to help fill in this dark void. And yeah, you guys will be able to see the finished shot when it's all done, hopefully. But anyway, I'm just going to show you how to focus stack today. And the very first thing I want to do, I've already done some adjustments in Lightroom, and I brought them all in as layers into Photoshop. So I'm not working with smart objects. This is just regular old layers in Photoshop. And on the top, I have the frame that is focused nearest to me. So these flowers here in the foreground, finishing up with a shot that has the top of this mountain back here in focus. Even though there's so much haze and fog back there, you're really not going to notice. But I want to make sure that we at least get this ridge line in the top of the hill here in focus, because there's a difference between being out of focus and being shrouded in haze. So I want to make sure those things are at least sharp and in focus. So when you print this big and you look closely, or you zoom in online, you'll be able to see all the detail in the flowers and stuff back there. So the very first thing I'm going to do is align all of these. So I'm just going to shift click the top of my layer stack to make sure everything is selected, and I'm going to go edit, auto align, and we're going to use auto. I'm not going to use vignette control or geometric distortion, and I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so we have got all of these layers aligned, so if I click through these, we shouldn't really notice much movement except for around the outer edges. And around those outer edges, all of that shrinking you're seeing is called focus breathing. So each time you focus back or focus forward, your lens elements are moving around, and this is sort of a side effect of magnification. So you always kind of want to shoot a little bit wider than you intend to, so that you can crop some of this stuff off. But you can see as I click through these, we don't really have a lot of movement going on, and this is good. These are the kind of conditions that you want to shoot wildflowers in, when things are not moving around, so you can keep a low ISO, you don't have a lot of noise, and you don't have any problems when things line up or when we go to blend them together. But there's just ever so slightly some movement in those Indian paintbrush that I think might present a little bit of a problem, but we'll see. So now that we've done this, I'm going to hit Command or Control G while they're all selected, and that's going to put them in a group. And we're just going to say this group is called Aligned. Now we're going to duplicate that group. We're going to call this Aligned and Blended. So we're going to open up this group, and we're going to shift click all of these files again, except this time we're going to go Edit, Auto Blend, and Stack Images. I like to click the seamless tones and colors in the other box, because any little gaps where it creates the mask, if there's any weird stuff going on, any gaps like you see around the edges, Photoshop's going to do its best job of trying to fix those areas and filling them in with content aware fill, and it's going to try to match the colors and tones if there's any shift between each frame, which there shouldn't be. I was shooting in manual white balance like I normally do, and the light wasn't really changing, and I shot these fairly quickly. Okay, now that it has aligned all of these frames, it's going to generate this merged layer on top. But let's turn that off, and let's just go click through these to see the difference between each frame. And we're noticing not a lot is changing, and that's good. All right. So now let's zoom into this merged layer and just see if there are any mistakes. Before we do that, let me hold Alt or Option and click through these masks so you can kind of get an understanding of what Photoshop is deeming in focus or out of focus. So basically, anything that is black is being hidden on this layer, anything that is white is being revealed. And each time I click through one of these, there should be different parts of the image selected and deselected, kind of like puzzle pieces. Once all of these go together, you kind of have jigsaw puzzle, which is your merged layer. It is all of these layers combined onto one layer. So very much like a merged visible, except it's kind of picked and chosen different parts of each one of these frames to include in that final merged layer. So now let's zoom in. Let's go 100%, and we're just going to analyze the shot. Make sure that it didn't miss anything. Anywhere where it has a hard time blending, you're going to notice there are going to be areas around or behind these flowers where things are kind of blurry. That's fairly normal, and you want to go in and spend a little bit of time cleaning these areas up, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So let's just pull this merged layer out of the group and put it on the very top, and we're going to collapse this group, and let's turn him off, and let's go through these files to see which one has these flowers most in focus. So click, click, click. Okay, we're getting past them now, so let's back up. It looks like this frame right here has these flowers most in focus. So let's just compare. Yeah, you can see there's some areas here kind of in the front of this flower, some of the petals here, kind of down into the stalks here, maybe even here and here, where things are a little bit blurry. So what I'd like to do is take this guy and pull him right to the very top. Collapse this layer for now. Turn this guy back on, use our merged layer, and let's put a black mask on him. Oops, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be a black mask, so we'll just Command-I to invert. Before we do that, let's change the blend mode to difference and just see if we can get this layer to line up any better. So Command or Control T, and just using my arrow keys to see if we can get things to line up a little bit better. We're not going to be able to get this perfect. For the sake of this video, we're going to keep it kind of short, and I'm going to move fairly quickly, but that should do us. So I'm going to make my brush nice and small, and let's go fairly hard brush. Let's go 85 to 90 is probably okay, and that's just going to determine the amount of feathering we have around the edge of our brush. So let's just go in here and make sure that we are revealing. Okay, let's, always have to make sure you change your blend mode back to normal or it's going to look really strange. So now we can paint in here, and things should just be a little sharper for us. That looks a whole lot better. And anywhere you kind of make a mistake like that, you're going to kind of toggle back and forth between white and black here to kind of fade the two frames together. We just really want to make sure things are nice and focused, because these paintbrush were a big part of the reason why I even shot this scene. So I want to make sure that they look as nice as they can. Just go right to the edge of these, just to make sure the edges look nice and sharp. There's enough going on around the back side of these that if we go over a little bit, you're not really going to notice that. So you just want to kind of make sure the edges are nice and sharp. That's the most important thing in a scene like this. When you have something like this, it's kind of a main focal point. Just come down in here and fix the stock. Fix this flower too. See how they were kind of blurry around the edge? This frame is doing good to help us out. zoomed in really far here, 200%. So I'm being maybe a little bit overcritical, but I think it's important to fix these issues. And we're going to double back with a black brush here in a second and just try to clean some of these blurred edges up just a little. And see, because of the movement, things don't always line up that well. So let's now switch back to our black brush and let's just try to clean up around these areas a little bit, just so the blur isn't so strong. You can see these blurred areas are not being affected, and that's because they're actually, this blurred area is on another frame. It was just improperly blended by Photoshop, but I think for all intents and purposes, this is gotten us there. I wouldn't necessarily worry about any of the other flowers unless you wanted to go in and check these yellow flowers here, but it didn't look like they moved very much. It looks like they aligned well and they blended well. And we're going to crop off a little bit of this bottom. You can see it blurred. This is a result of the content aware fill stuff we did when we were aligning. So you're going to end up kind of cropping that off anyway. But everything else looks pretty good. These Indian paintbrush look nice and sharp. That was really important. And everything else looks good as well. So from here, I would just get right into my technical creative workflow stuff. But I always tend to do the perspective blending or the focus stacking or the exposure blending right at the beginning of the workflow after Lightroom, before getting into the Photoshop stuff. But hopefully this automated focus stacking method will help you. Okay guys, here's the finished image. This was focus stacked from 7 or 8 shots, I think. This was a scene that really required it. Hyperfocal distance wasn't going to cut it. I don't really like to stop down too far on this lens because diffraction becomes an issue. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that at least get you started with focus stacking. Later.